Hello, let's talk about conditional formatting in Smartsheet. What we're going to cover are 3 examples of how you can do conditional formatting. I find that to be the best way of learning. I have here in front of me a sample sheet, and that's the only place you can apply this formatting. It can hit a report, so if you're trying to put some conditional formatting into a report, whether it be just a report itself or in a dashboard, you can do that as well, but it starts at the sheet level. This is where you apply that formatting. So I just want to walk you through this sheet real quick and then explain the examples. We're going to do 3 of them. I have a project column, which is just a text or name, duration, which is a text or number, likewise with duration, start and end dates, which are date columns, the completion percentage, a status column, which is a drop-down single select, health, which is a symbol, owners and customers, which are also name or number, and then a budget allocation column. None of this really matters for you. You don't need to have the same exact thing. You'll get the gist of it from just how I walk you through this. So I've got 3 examples. The first one, let's pretend we wanted to make a conditional formatting rule in this sheet that marks statuses as complete as a green row. So if you have a row with a status like this one right here that says complete, I want this whole row to turn green. To get started on any conditional formatting, you hit this icon up here, conditional formatting. Once it opens up, you'll see this grayed out template. This is just an example. You're going to click add new rule, and then here we go. The first thing is we click the condition, and I want the status to be completed. Now, I want to pause real quick. You have 2 options for criteria. You can select from a drop-down if that applies, or define custom criteria, and you just sort of got to get used to this. There's a lot of rules like is equal to, not equal to, contains, greater than, less than. We'll get into this in a little bit, but for now I'm going to jump back to select from a list, and we want it to be complete. One last thing, if you ever wanted to see something that did not meet those criteria, you just check this little box. So if you had a bunch of criteria, you wanted the opposite of any one, you just click this. That does not apply here. We want to see criteria where the status is complete. I'm going to say OK. So that's this part, and now we've got 2 more things to specify. What's the format you want to apply to your cell or your row, and then of course what do you want that formatting to apply to. It'll all make sense in a second. So I'm going to click this format. Quick disclaimer, here's all your formatting options. Everything up till the taskbar you can apply to your sheet in any view, and it will apply. And what I mean by that is if you were to bold, italicize, change the background color, all of it would hit your sheet. Taskbar only affects calendar view, Gantt view, or card view. In this view, which we are in, it's grid view, it won't have any impact. So like I said, we wanted to turn, I'm going to pick this color green, 4, and I'm going to just click outside of that so it goes away, the entire row. Over here on the right, you'll see an example of what the formatting you chose is going to look like, and just by the way, it applied it in the background, but it's not always that convenient because your sheet could be huge or none of the criteria met. This is a good reference. Just to show you what I mean, you can click the entire row as we have now, or if you wanted just your status, for example, maybe status and project name, to appear in that green, I'm going to press OK, and you can see what that did in the background. Nonetheless, to be consistent with our example, I'm going to switch back to the entire row. I'm going to press OK. So there's our first conditional format. That one's pretty straightforward. Alright, so let's move on to our next example. In example 2, we want to, under formatting, we want to embolden the end date, which would be this column here. We just want to embolden the end date itself, not the entire row. If those 2 conditions are met. Those 2 conditions are the end date is within 5 days and the completion percentage is less than 50%, meaning you're not even halfway done something that's due in 5 days. Maybe you want to call it out. So the way we're going to do this is just like last time. We're going to click on conditional formatting. There's our first rule that we already made. We're going to add a new rule, and we're going to start just the same way. We're going to say if set conditions. We're going to click that, and we're going to go to, let's start with the first one, end date is in the next number of days, and it's 5 days. We're going to say OK. And then we want to apply one more conditional formatting. We want the logic to be an end rule, meaning both conditions have to be met. So the way you do that is you click this drop down menu and you click add condition. Quick caveat, don't click that too many times. There's no way to delete it. You have to delete the whole rule and start all over. We're going to go into the condition, and I wanted the second condition to be the completion percentage. Just got to find it. Completion percentage. And again, they're prompting me with a list of values. Something in there must be 43%. Like, this doesn't really make sense for us. I'm going to define a custom criteria and say I want it to be less than 50%. Now, you're going to be tempted when it comes to percentages in all of Smartsheet to just type the percentage itself, like 50. But whenever you're working with a formula, you have to be careful to put it in decimal values. So 50% is 0.5, 40% is 0.4, etc. Say OK. So there's our first, there's our second condition. Then apply this format, and like I said, we want to bold. I'm just going to leave it at that for now. The entire row. We don't want the entire row. Let's pretend you wanted to see just the end date in bold. I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to say OK. And let's check it out. Be very careful about this. Whenever you're watching the video, make sure you adjust your dates if you're following along and this is something you want. Smartsheet works in real time, so whatever is within the next 5 days for you will only work. So for me, that's the 24th is in the next 5 days. Project 5, let's click this one just for fun, and I'm going to go to tomorrow, and it's 40% done, and there it is. You can see this is bold, that's not bold. So this is working. Let's go to our last example. I want to make one more. Let's turn an entire row red if two things are met. The budget is over 50, whatever those units are. I've got a budget allocation column here. If the budget's over 50 and the health is red or yellow, which I can already tell is going to be this one, because we've got a red health and 90 budget, whatever the units are. And then this one I've got 60 and green, so this one should not turn red. Let's test it and see. Conditional formatting, add a new rule. If, we're going to start with the budget, is, again, that list doesn't make sense, is greater than, where are you? What did we say, 50? Okay, and we want to add an end condition. The other condition being the health is red or yellow, and I'm going to click on both. We're going to say OK. Apply this format. We want the background, let's say, to be fire engine red. We're going to say to the entire row, OK. There it is. So we've got a bad situation here. We've got a red health, and our budget's pretty high. Let's test it with this one, because we've also got a high budget here, and if I turn this one yellow, there it goes. And you could also add another formatting option, which is a good point to call out. Let's pretend you wanted to separate them. We said if the health is red or yellow, apply red. If you wanted to do the same thing, but if it was yellow, then apply a yellow row. You have to separate that out. You can't do that in one rule. You have to actually make a separate rule. That's it. Those are our 3 examples. I do have a couple of key points here for you, though. Just to remember, there's priority. So if I pull this up, this conditional formatting, you may run into a situation where you make a ton of conditional formatting rules, and then 2 of them or more meet the same criteria. So in other words, let's say you've got one rule that says turn the row green, and another rule that says to turn it yellow, and both conditions are met. Smartsheet's going to defer to which order you put these in. None of these that we've made, these 3 examples, are conflicting with each other, so as I move them around, you'll notice there's no changes on the sheet behind me. But you may, or the sheet behind here, but you may be in that situation in which you have multiple criteria set that are met, and you're telling Smartsheet to do different things. It's just going to do whichever one has higher priority and disregard the other. Next one is the taskbar formatting. I mentioned that at the beginning, but the taskbar formatting, if I was to click on the formatting, this one right here, that only applies to card, Gantt, and calendar view, and let me just show you what that means real quick. So what I did was, in this last one, the budget allocation is big and the health is bad, then let's make the taskbar purple. And if I switch to, let's go to Gantt first, you'll notice the taskbar, which is right here, is purple. And you'll see the same thing in the card view, purple, purple, and the same thing in calendar view. There it is. Next is cell-based conditions, their formatting. So let me go back into grid view. If you had a certain matrix or some sort of a grid in which you wanted each cell, like this cell and then this cell and then this cell, you wanted them to be treated differently, and you wanted sort of a matrix level conditional formatting. Unfortunately, you have to apply it one piece at a time, although you can clone rules, and I'll show you what that is. If you click this drop down, you can clone the rule, which is really just a copy paste and then make some small change, but you'd have to do that for each cell. But understand there's no way to actually change just the cell that you're referring to, aside from coming into here and telling it which row or which column you're looking for. Lastly is end/or. So let's pretend if I open up one of these, you can see we've made two examples that have end logic, meaning this criteria and this criteria have to be met in order for this formatting to take place. If you wanted or logic, meaning this condition or this condition is met, apply this. All you'd have to do is make separate rules. So make the first one, if the end is in the next 5 days, then apply this format to the end column, and then create another rule that says if the completion percentage is less than 0.5, then apply this format. So two separate rules there. That's it. That's how you do conditional formatting in Smartsheet. Best of luck. If you like this video, head on over to kylescourses.com. I've got a couple of full courses that you can take a look at, or a couple of just free one-offs like this one. Thank you.